I'm going to talk about some art world paradoxes today. I've been thinking a lot about paradoxes. Actually, I have some paradox candies that at the next break they're going to be available. I was going to hand them out first, but then I realized that then you guys would be crinkling the whole time I was talking and I'd never be able to keep talking. But I think our culture is confused to the point of insanity about how to value art. Like, I just think that we just can't figure it out. And I've been noticing a bunch of these sort of opposing forces or contradictions, and I'm going to use 3 of them as a jumping off point to talk about how we struggle to show, how we struggle to figure out how we should value art and what is valuable in art. Okay, I'm supposed to aim that way. Oh, yay. Okay, so this is the first paradox. It's like we can't figure out who art is for. And we sort of simultaneously think both of these 2 things. And it's been seeming to me that a lot of the most influential or even maybe hyped events in the art world fall into 2 opposing categories. And one is, I think of as like the exclusive model, and that is like art for a very small intended audience. So it involves like guest lists and VIPs and hierarchies of different types of people, different types of guests, and like admission fees, and they're really formal events with like a high production value, and they're very ordered, like everyone knows who's supposed to do what and what is going to happen. And you know, in a modest way, this is an event like that. This is like, not everyone who wanted to be here could be here today. So there were like barriers to entry. You know, there were hurdles to get over. It takes some time, you know, a significant amount of time, a significant amount of money. There's the application. It's like you had to be invited. But I want to talk about some of my favorite examples that are just much more extreme examples of this like exclusive model. This is a show called The Island. It was curated by Smack Mellon, and it was in Miami in 2010 during the Miami Art Fairs. And it's an exhibition that was on an island. It is an island with no way to get to it. And the only way that invited guests, and I mean, this is something that's written up in the New York Times as like one of the things you can do in Miami, but at the bottom it says by invitation only. And so invited guests could get on these private motorboats from the Mondrian Hotel and be taken to this island. So it's an exhibition, and it's only one evening. And from what I heard, actually some of those boats didn't work so well, and a lot of people actually, I mean, so it was a very small intended audience, and then even fewer people actually went. So obviously we're all hearing a lot about these museum galas, and this falls into that category as well. So this is Marina Abramovic's very, very much talked about museum gala at LA MoCA this past winter, where there were the rotating heads and the tables and all of that. And I'm just so interested in this increasing phenomenon of artists doing performances, installations, and whole sort of shows that are just for this really small elite audience. Like, this is one night, it's 750 people, and that is the life of this sort of exhibition. It's just these invited guests. And now I want to talk about the opposite extreme. So the other, at the same time that we're having this like greater and greater, like this gala culture, and most of us only experience these events through reading about them on Seen and Heard or whatever. It's like, this is the polar opposite. This is Hennessy Youngman's show called It's a Small, Small World. Hennessy Youngman is the, I guess, nom de guerre of an artist named Jason Masson, and he does that Art Thoughts video series, which is so funny if you haven't seen any of them. And this is a 100 square foot gallery in Chelsea called Family Business. And when he decided to organize the show, I can't use the word curated, he invited everyone who could bring their work there to exhibit. And there were approximately 500 artists who brought their work to this 100 square foot gallery and exhibited their work. And it's a small, small world. This is a project that I did in 2010 in collaboration with William Pauhaida. And it was called #Class, and it was a month-long series of events, performances, and discussion at the Winkleman Gallery in Chelsea. And we were asked if we wanted to do a show about art and art's relationship to the market. And we had a series of brainstorming sessions, and we couldn't figure out what on earth we would say about. We can't make sense of it, and so we sent out this open call, and that's sort of what characterizes these sort of like extreme access events. Is there's like open calls, there's free stuff. If it's not free, it's really cheap. There's like beer all day long. Actually, at every conversation all day that we held in the gallery, we had free beer. We just realized that really actually gets people talking. And, and what we would do here instead of panel discussions is we had table discussions, and we would invite, so basically, we had, all these people, when we did the open call, people proposed either events or performances or something, and we would have people, then instead of curating, we just slotted them into time slots. We took as many people as we could until we ran out of time. So then there would be like invited guests, and then there would be whoever wandered in, but we would all sit at the same table, and we would all be drinking beer. And this is Ben Davis, the critic Ben Davis, talking about his 9.5 theses on art and class that actually I'm going to quote from him in a few minutes. But so the whole event was streamed on Ustream, that's what this is, with like a lot of, so we were trying to open up access, like more people participating through social media, through trying to break down barriers of like geography and even time, so there was a blog, and there was the Ustream there. Oh, and our motto for our hashtag class was "Freedom is untidy," in the immortal words of Donald Rumsfeld. And I also just want to say that a lot of these projects that are like this are done on a shoestring budget, but that they're not really actually necessarily only done by artists who have only that option. Like there are projects like this done by artists in museum settings. I mean, I wanted to talk about these too because they're the funnest ones for me to talk about. But a lot of other projects that are done in a museum setting or in a blue chip setting fit into this same model of working. Oh, this is my next paradox. And this is another thing, like we just can't decide how we feel about success. Like we sort of feel both of these things at the same time too. So is money good or bad for art? It's like, I think that we have a really, really hard time with that question. And this is a piece that I did in 2008. It's called Are Times of Recession Good for Art? And you can actually vote by taking a metallic, like a chocolate coin, a gold foil or silver foiled coin. And every time I've shown this from 2008 on, I think it's been 4 times, yes has always won. People say that times of recession are good for art. So people do seem kind of uncomfortable with the role that money has in art. But at the same time, this is a project I did in 2006. It's called Would You Rather Be a Loser or a Pig? And this is me trying to get really at the heart of this idea. When I think it seems to me that artists are often really defined by what was happening when they were in art school. And when I was in art school in the late 80s and early 90s, it was a bad thing to be successful. Like, the worst thing you could tell someone is, if you had mainstream popularity, then that meant that you were catering to the lowest common denominator. That meant that stupid people liked you. Like if everyone likes you, that means it's not just an elite who likes you or your own people who like you. It's like, then you must be doing something wrong. Like you could really slay someone by calling them a sellout, where I don't feel like that has a sting anymore. And starving artists were like a thing that was respected. I think that has a lot of problems as well. That enabled a lot of bad behavior. But so I'm always struggling with, like I'm on team loser, I wear my loser bracelet. But artists are, you're both uncomfortable with success, but of course you're supposed to want success. And you're always reading about other people's success in a way that you're supposed to aspire to. Like, and auction houses are making, always posting crazy record prices. And the artists among us, some of the most conspicuous 1%ers are artists, and their lofts are in Vanity Fair, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But the rest of us artists are often told that the value of our work is 0. Like we are often being asked to give away our work and our time for free. And I don't know if you guys know the artist activist group WAGE, Working Artists in a Greater Economy, but they have a really great manifesto, and one of the things that they say is that if you're an artist and you're installing your work in a nonprofit gallery or a museum, the chances are pretty good that you're the only person in that building not being paid that day. That we're working on spec like this and we're paid in exposure, and everything's always being sort of put off. Oh, but this will lead to something, But, and we're encouraged to feel that it's a show of commitment to be working for free. We're often encouraged to feel that way by people who might otherwise be paying us. But at the same time, some of our most successful artists are very, very conspicuously renovating their homes into castles. This is John Curran and Rachel Feinstein. And what's funny actually is this article is about how they're catching flack for not living like how artists are supposed to live, which I think is funny. And then this, I just love. This is Julian Schnabel's pool in his 17-story building in the West Village. I just wanted to show that. So, are the best artists poor and unrecognized in their own time? Or are the best artists like made rich and successful by their own time because they connect? It's like we sort of feel both those things at the same time. Is art something that we do for free because it's good for us and for humanity, or is art something that we do as work? Is it labor that we expect to be paid for? And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Lewis Hyde's book, The Gift, but he makes this amazing argument that it can be both at the same time. That art can be a gift and exist in the marketplace at the same time. I highly recommend that book. All right, this is my last paradox. Does art reinforce the existing tastes of the ruling class, or does it fuck with the system? Like, is it, or can it be both? Is it possible for it to be both? And some of our most famous artists strike this pose, maybe that's too strong, of saying, the system sucks, and goodbye. Like, this is Maurizio Catalan's show at Guggenheim last winter, and he famously said this was his goodbye to the art world. We will see if that's true. He actually is part owner in the family business gallery that showed Hennessy Youngman, so I'm thinking no. But, and even like Jeff Koons or Damien Hirst or Tracy Emin, these are people whose whole careers are made out of sort of trying to tweak, or mess with the values of the so-called ruling class. And the ruling class, the system just eats it up. So, and I actually feel like a lot of times the system is just flattered to be noticed. So for a lot of our criticisms, and sometimes the system is just is able. Well, I'll get into that in a minute. But sometimes it actually seems to thrive on it. And I think that this has really complex ramifications for actual activist art, like art that is actually trying to make a change. And I have activist art tendencies, so I think about this all the time. And how does satire function in the art world? And this is William Pauhaida, my collaborator on a hashtag class. This is a print that he did. It was a cover of the Brooklyn Rail, and it was outlining this controversy about the new museum, who in their show Skin Fruit showed the collection of one of their trustees, Takesh Joannow, and you can't read it here. I recommend going online. It's scathing, it's hilarious, it's horrifying, it's mean. And he made a print, Pauhaida made a print of this, and Takesh Joannow called the gallery one day and wanted to buy one. And he did, he bought a print. And so it just really makes me wonder, which is the most salient gesture? Is it the artist making this piece, or the Brooklyn Rail deciding to publish it, or does the collector negate all of that by buying the piece? Or can the satire and can the institutional critique change things, even as it participates in a marketplace? And I will end, because I think I have to, on the critic Ben Davis, who I showed earlier at the hashtag class discussion. One of my favorite quotes that I think about all the time from his 9.5 theses on art in class is, "Another rule for art is a symbolic escape valve for radical impulses, to serve as a place to isolate and contain social energy that runs counter to the dominant ideology." So, I think that's another way of saying that, that the system is able to commodify dissent. And so if anyone who wants to change that, that's just a struggle that we're just going to be in finding a way to change that. That's all for now. Thank you.